Good evening and welcome to another edition of the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. Tonight we're joined by one of the face of the highly popular podcast, The Extra Inch, and one of the most interesting Tottenham figures online, Chris Miller. We're also joined by one of my closest friends, a regular on the show, and one of the most passionate sports fans I know, Mr. Stephen McGrath. First of all, Chris, how are we keeping? How's things?
Not too bad, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to chatting some Spurs with you guys.
No problem. Look, a pleasure to have you on tonight. We know you're a very busy man, so to give us some of your time is absolutely fantastic. So cheers for that. Really happy with that, Chris. Steve, how are you tonight? How's your week been?
Yeah, good mate, good. Glad I suppose international football is over and done with. I suppose neither of our nations fared out too well this week, so I think we'll all be glad to see the back of it. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, and I actually had a thought during the week about international football. It kind of came across my brain yesterday, and fans complain for so long about players not getting the chance for the international team, and then when you have like 4 or 5 players in the team, like we do, and very important players, straight away we're like, don't play him. So it's been quite an interesting turnaround in terms of how this actually happened over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think like I'd say in the early Pochettino days, it was kind of like almost like a badge of pride. Like we had 20 full internationals in the squad. Or even before Pochettino, if we go back in the Redknapp days, because we had like all the boys, the Croatian boys. So it was always like a badge of honor. Our squad is so strong. We have so many international players in there. Yeah. And nowadays it's like, oh God, we've got so many international players. So.
Well, the different approaches between the two managers is it's so intriguing as well, because Pochettino was all for players going out and representing their country. He knew it kind of meant a lot to them personally, and so he kind of encouraged. He wanted them to go and do it as much as possible. Mm. Mourinho is just so single-minded. He only cares about what's best for. Well, he cares about what's best for Jose Mourinho. Let's be honest, and then a byproduct of that is what's best for Tottenham. So he wants our players fit and ready to go for Spurs. So he's not so bothered about them getting international caps and representing their countries. That doesn't even come into the equation for him. He wants to withdraw as many as possible and just have them fit and ready for Spurs.
Which I think is fair enough in one sense, because of the fact that, look, his job is on the chopping block in terms of every result that matters, and every player matters now for our first team. So yeah, I think he has the right approach. I suppose leading on from the Jose conversation, I suppose, so it's 1 year today that he was appointed as Tottenham manager. I'm going to throw something very quickly at you here, just to have a thought for 1 second. I want you to think of one word to describe of your emotion when Jose got the job, and I want you to think of one word to describe how you feel today about Jose 1 year into the job.
So when he got the job, I was still dealing with the grief of Pochettino leaving to some degree. But I would say the word that comes to mind is interested. When he was appointed, I was interested. And
right
now, I could say I'm still interested. I'm still watching closely. I would say encouraged, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, apprehensive at first, definitely. Again, I think, look, there's very few Spurs fans out there that wouldn't have been endeared to Pochettino at the time. So I think it was definitely like apprehension. No one, I suppose, because we're all surrounded by like not many United fans here as well. Like, so there would be very a biased opinion and one-sided opinion on him. It still is, but look, I think now I'm excited. I'm seeing things coming through on that, and I'm hoping it works out.
Yeah, I feel more settled at the moment. I suppose the first couple of games was a lot of excitement there. Chris, me and Steve actually spoke probably 6-7 months before the appointment of Mourinho, and we said, Steve acted to me, Jamie, Jose Mourinho will be our next manager. I don't know when, I don't know how soon it will be. And I kind of looked at him when he said it to me. I was kind of like, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from, but I can't see it happening. And then as the time started to kind of come where the fixtures were getting worse and worse and the results were getting worse and worse, and then he was on Sky Sports and he was kind of like an advert on a site for us in terms of like, look, this is who I am, this is my philosophy. I've changed slightly to who I've been, and then we're starting to kind of get the itch, thinking, you know what, maybe it's the poison chalice that we can have, and it's
not all too dissimilar to the Pochettino on Monday Night Football thing there a few weeks back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So going into, I suppose, Jose's first year with us, what do you think in relation to? Can you think of a specific thing that he's implemented on the squad, either playing or psychologically, over the course of the last year, or has anything really changed in terms of Tottenham at the moment?
I think the main thing, and I give him tremendous credit for this, is the way he's reshaped the squad and reshaped the first team. It was something that Pochettino was criticised for, Daniel Levy was criticised for. I think Levy, in fact, picks up way more criticism than Pochettino does for not signing players for those 2 windows. Was it 3 windows? I forget. Actually, I think Pochettino needs to take a fair share of the blame for that, because ultimately he was too fussy about the players he wanted. And what's been really good about Mourinho is he's been super pragmatic and just thought, right, okay, we need to improve these areas. If I don't get players in to improve the areas, we're going to be in trouble. Therefore, I'll take whatever player I'm given. So you end up in a position where we might not have the best players in the best positions, but we've got a better player in the best position. And I've got to say, I've been really pleasantly surprised by that. The pragmatism. I think we made some really good signings. Reguilon is the one that stands out for me. I think it's absolutely sensational sign. I don't know how we've got a player that good. He should be one of the best clubs in the world. Huey Bear as well. I mean, Huey Bear is a dream of a signing, really. But again, not a lot of money, not a lot of teams would have been interested in him. Just really pragmatic. Just realised what he needs to get into the middle of the field, and he got him. So I have to say, I'm incredibly impressed with the way that the transfer deals have worked out.
And Steve, is it a similar view from yourself regarding that?
Yeah, like as Chris said, like it's the reshaping of the squad and the not so flair players that he's gotten in to like plug gaps and make us just gives a little bit more steel. Højbjerg again being the example there. I suppose we've seen stories lately about how like Pochettino had declined some players like Tielemans, for example, like a player that like there's very few Spurs fans out there would have turned their nose up at, so I guess look, there was more to it at the time than maybe we know of, but now I'm looking forward to seeing how the teams have gelled very well. Like we were often encouraged to get signings, but they took forever to settle in and to gel. And I think look at how Højbjerg settled in. Even Reguilon seems to have settled in really well. So I think that's very important for us.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with both points there. I think the biggest thing was the recruitment in the summer. I think that was the first time we saw a real imprint in terms of what Jose's idea for what Spurs was going to be. The signings, me and Steve have discussed, Chris, about the signings were very reminiscent of Jose at Porto, because we watched the documentary on Netflix, and it was one of the situations where he bought players that were leaders. They were from lower leagues, from lower positioned teams in the Superliga, and he got the right gel together for that. And I'm kind of glad that we're starting to go away from the thing of Poch and Mourinho. We have to just basically enjoy Poch as much as we did, and we know we have to enjoy Mourinho as much as we are. And I'm starting to like that. I'm starting to get the real sense of the fans are starting to warm to the winning, I suppose. The winning is the big part of it. One player who isn't enjoying life at the moment at Spurs is Dele Alli. What do we think, Chris? Like in January, do we see it as his time to go in terms of Jose's view of him, or does he still have a life at Spurs?
I'm quite militant on this, to be honest. I think selling Delhi now would be absolutely ridiculous. Not because it's not the right thing for him. Like clearly, if he's not trusted by the manager, he needs to get away from the club as soon as possible because he's going to waste a year of his career. But this is a player who literally 18 months ago was touted as a player worth upwards of 100 million. And if we were to sell him today, we'd get what, 35, 40 million, something like that. It would be bananas to sell him low. Like you always sell high. You sell players when they're at their peak or just coming to the end of their peak, so you get maximum value. It seems crazy to me. I think the most sensible thing would be to loan him, find a club where he'll play regularly, can get his mojo back, can quickly reclaim some of his value and become a valuable asset again. And then if it comes to selling him, then we'll get more money for him. But hopefully I'd like to see him kind of get his mojo back and then come back to Spurs and play like he was playing. Well, even at the start of Mourinho's tenure, he was, scoring goals, assisting goals, playing really well. He was the hub of the team and he looked really good. So I don't want to give up on him. I feel like we're so quick as fans, and don't get me wrong, I'm the same. I've been the same previously. We're so quick to give up on players, and it's so simple just to sort of have this football manager mentality of, okay, that player's not in the team anymore. I'll sell them. I'll make money. I'll move on to the next one. And actually, it's not as simple as that. Players go through peaks and troughs all the time, and they need to be in the right headspace. And they need a bit of time, a bit of empathy, and they can get back easily to the heights of their ability. And Delhi's such a talented player; it just seems nuts to me to be thinking of getting rid of him.
Yeah, I think that, like Steve, is a similar view from yourself. I know that the last conversation we had on the podcast, we spoke about something similar to what Chris was saying there, where we used Steve used the example of Ross Barkley going to Aston Villa. Is that a situation that Delhi has to put in his mind in terms of how to get his mojo back, to actually go to an Aston Villa, maybe a Southampton, that could get him back to those levels? And Steve, do you still kind of feel the same with that?
I do.
Situation there.
I actually, it's funny enough, it's just I actually saw a comment on Reddit from Chris about this on the Ornstein article. So I fully agree with that. Like, I think there is still a player worth 100 million or so there somewhere. I think the loan, the PSG loan, I don't think that, because that's again another kind of an egotistical kind of move that will maybe give him like notions. Whereas I think like like if you look at, as I said, Barkley going to Villa, that kind of move where you go down, where you make yourself the star in the smaller team, as opposed to like going in there with Mbappe and Neymar, all this kind of thing. I think he needs to go down there, get his head down. Someone like Dean Smith, I think, would be incredibly tough on him. But I think it would be tough love. He would get the love. It's like, geez, we've got Dele Alli here in our team, and they play with him. I think, as opposed to PSG, he would just be a passerby to them, But I definitely would be very, very, very hurt to see us actually sell him in January.
And potentially going to PSG, you're part of a toxic enough probably group as it is. Do you know what I mean? Where I don't know whether it'd be the best environment for him. Tolawani just said there, Delhi just signed a contract with a gaming company. Does that show any sign of a guy who wants to get his career back? I believe in Delhi, but at clubs like Bayern City, they would have sold him. I
don't know. I don't know if would they have sold him. He's a victim too of a system. He doesn't really fit the Jose system that we currently have. So even if he were, let's say, in form with the current squad that we have, I don't believe he would be starting, just because we don't have that role in Jose's preferred formation. But as Chris said, like it's strange that like he was the team Jose came in first and he was flying, and then to where we are now, it's a strange one, but like it all comes down to him, I suppose.
I think one part of it also is, I think the thing that's changed is Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane plays what Delhi plays position-wise better now, and he can
and
play
his
two
own.
positions, and he can play his own position. So that's kind of the situation you have at the moment. Where do you fit him in? He isn't going to be an industrious midfielder like what Jose likes currently. But is there a system there that you can place him into? What do you think, Chris?
So I've got some views on this. I feel like Dele was so good from the left when he first joined. I remember the first few games he played in midfield, and then we worked out, no, this guy is much better in the final third. He needs to be in the final third. And we played him for a long time from the left, and he was terrific, really terrific from the left, making those out-to-win runs, getting on the end of diagonal passes, getting on the end of crosses, picking up that kind of gap between full-back and centre-back. And he's a very good interpreter of space. He's got a really good football brain for a relatively young footballer. And I feel like we're missing a trick we've got Son, obviously, who's fantastic, but Son's quite a streaky player, and he's going through, or has been going through for the last few games, a bit of a downward streak. He's not been so hot.
And when he's bad, he's very bad.
Exactly, yeah. He when he's good, he's one of the best in the world. When he's bad, he's terrible. But we could be putting Dele in there and playing him from the left, and he could be making similar runs to what Son's been making and getting on the end of things. And I feel that's something that's worth experimenting with. But I think the horse is bolted at this point. Unfortunately, I can't see him, certainly in the short term, coming back into Mourinho's plans.
And going towards, I suppose, obviously Dele has been disappointing this season because we haven't seen much of him. But a question to you: who do you think has been the most influential player for Spurs this season so far, Chris?
Harry Kane. Harry Kane is, we're not the same team without Kane. We're just not. We would probably be mid-table, I imagine. He's so good. It's ridiculous how good he is. I genuinely think at the moment he's one of the best players in the world, if not like the best player in the world. On current form, I'm not saying he's the best player in the world. Obviously, Lionel Messi is the best player in the world. But when Kane's on form like this, he's almost unplayable. I just don't know what defenders can do to stop him. His movement is so good. His finishing so good. His passing is just unbelievable. And he's so fired up for every game at the moment. And he just looks like he's going to score in every match. His return so far has been insane. I have to say Kane is the main man in terms of his influence for us right now.
I think rival fans also will say that we see a lot of it lately through the media, people saying, oh, he is world class, he isn't world class. And I'm not really caring what other fans say, to be honest. I don't care what other rival fans say, because he is the one where it doesn't matter what they say. He will still prove everybody wrong. He will still score 25, 30 goals a season. He will still score in big games. He's still our best player. And I just don't care what they want to say about it. I don't care what Talksport want to say about it, because they're always saying that, look, he isn't in the top 5 strikers ever in England. Maybe he isn't, but to us right now, he is just far beyond the best player that we've had in the last 20 years anyway. Definitely.
Yeah, like I'd say, like, most influential, I've written down here Kane, but beside it I have a slash, and I have Højbjerg as the surprise. When he came in, when we signed him, like, I wasn't expecting much. I knew what he was about in terms of, you just, like, there's not much to know about him because he just does the very basic things, but just does them really, really well. But his first game against Everton was very ropey, and he got an awful lot of flack off the back of it. And then next thing, all of a sudden, he got into this groove, and everything goes through him now, and like, he goes in, like, when he goes to break up play, it's like he just knows when to put his foot in. He knows exactly when to put his foot in. He's very combative, but also then, like, that pass against United for the assist, that also it showed something that I absolutely had no idea he had in his locker, which was that vision and that, like, the weight on that ball was so perfect. The angle on it was perfect. Like, it was just, you'd expect someone like De Bruyne or someone to play that kind of ball, But definitely, I think, look, like, obviously when I first started following Tottenham, it would have been the Sheringham Klinsmann era. So, like I was always excited by them. And then over the years, strikers were very lackluster for us. But I think since Kane's come about, it's just been a joy to be a Tottenham fan, to have someone like that in the squad, you know. But I think over the years, like we always had that one good player. And it was always a thing where like we always had a standout player throughout the seasons, but never had the squad around them. And I think like now in the last 5 years, and especially now this year with the recruitment, I think like we've got it, but we've got no excuses. I think if we don't do something with this current squad.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I look, going to Shane Dowley's question there, where does Kane rank among strikers Jose has managed? Off the top of my head, only Ibra better. Like I think we can all agree that he's better than Drogba. Even though Drogba was a very, very, very good player, he didn't quite have. When I look back at Drogba, I feel like he scored so many more goals than what he actually did. I feel like he scored hundreds, but his record for Chelsea isn't absolutely like
he always
crazy.
Scored against us.
He's always scored against us. He always scored against Arsenal. His record against Arsenal was absolutely incredible. Like, and then you look at the likes of when he was at Inter, you had Milito, who was very, very good at the time. He was very good. Real, then I don't know. Would you have Ronaldo in the same category because of the fact that he plays in different position? But he had Benzema. Benzema, I suppose, has been consistent over the last 10, 15 years. So yeah, look, Kane's up there. He's definitely up there with one of the best. And Milito scored in Jose's 3 finals, like unbelievable, like absolutely incredible. Keane said I would have said Rooney, but he didn't manage Rooney in his prime. But yeah, so Rooney was obviously at the end of his career there when Jose came in. Turning to the game now, the weekend. City tomorrow evening 5:30. The question I'm going to ask, guys, is I think we know how Jose is going to set up. My question to you is, how's Pep going to set up tomorrow? Is Pep going to be a little bit more tentative in his approach this season because of the fact of what he has seen Spurs to do against teams that have pressed high in the previous couple of games? Even Leicester at the back end of last season, we absolutely ripped them to shreds in the first 45 minutes there. How do you feel Pep will approach the game on Saturday, Steve?
I suppose like he's secured his long-term future anyway with his contract, so he might not be too worried now. But yeah, I think it's a case of like if you're looking at our games, it's easy to see that we don't do well against teams that are happy to sit back. So like the playbook to play against us at the moment would be that, but that's not a Pep thing and definitely not a Manchester City thing. So I think we'll find some sort of a hybrid in between those two. He's definitely not going to play his normal game pressing up against us because he just won't risk that with Son and Kane the way they are making those runs in behind. It'll be interesting for me to see who the third name is in our front three.
I'm not too sure. That is the one I'm not too sure about. I don't think it'll be Bale. I think if Lamela was fit, he would have played him.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I think like he's going to chance Bergwijn.
It's not a bad shout, to be fair. I think he might go with Lucas, just because he's such a favourite of Mourinho. I mean, I wouldn't pick Lucas, but I think he might do. But Lamela, I think Lamela would have been a really good shout. I feel like this is a really strange thing to say. I always feel like I shouldn't say it, but I think Burnley sort of gave a bit of a blueprint of how you can play against Spurs in terms of being able to press high, but still having a deep enough defence and enough defenders to deal with the dual threat of Kane and Son. And I think City do need to sort of borrow a bit from Sean Dyche, which seems like a crazy thing to say, but they City have a tendency to, they'll push high with their defence because they want to compact the amount of space and be able to pick up and recycle the ball quickly, and that means they can have 4 attacking midfielders at times, push right up, I think that leaves it really open and susceptible to counting. So he'll have to be super cautious. And yeah, I don't think he'll be able to commit as many players forward as he might have done in previous years.
Yeah, I think the Burnley thing, like if you watch the Burnley game, it's like they did it in phases. You know, it was like they were given, like, say, okay, for 10 minutes we're going to sit back and then we're going to try and press high. When Spurs kind of just get a rhythm into how to get through us, so we couldn't get comfortable in what we were doing and what we were playing. I think that's
And how do we feel the midfield be set up? That's an interesting three now. Do you see Sissoko getting the nod?
Yeah, I think so. I think against City he probably will. We do need to transition to just trying this potential midfield of Lo Celso and Ndombele and Højbjerg, though, because I mean, on paper it looks so good. It looks so good. Like we've been playing Ndombele in a more advanced role. He's basically played as a 10, and he kind of gets frustrated there. And what he'll do is drop back and come looking for the ball. I think also he and Kane end up taking the same space at times, which isn't that helpful. But I really, really want to see us play a more traditional 4-3-3 with Højbjerg sitting, Lo Celso to his right and Ndombele to his left. And I think that's the elite midfield in the league. To be honest, it's hard to get better than that.
Yeah, I don't think any Spurs fans would really argue with wanting that midfield three. I think we're a little while away from it yet, because what Sissoko does give us is just that immense work rate. He just doesn't have that little spark, that little bit of creativity that he needs to give that final ball when he gets in those advanced positions. But he's incredibly important to us with the way Højbjerg breaks up the play. Sissoko has the engine to then turn that into something. But he only has a simple ball about him. You're not going to see him knock a diagonal or a nice ball in over the top. You know, it's going to be a simple pass to maybe 10 yards.
Agreed, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to add to that as well that Sissoko is he's known as a transition player. He's really, really good when the ball is loose, when an attack has just ended, or he's responsible for ending it at times as well. It's then what happens next. He gets in the ball. He's really quick to loose balls, and he moves it on really quickly. Or he could try. You know, we've seen him many times try to ball with the ball. Just occasionally, his end product is lacking. But you know, he's an important transition player. I think against City, Sissoko is the most sensible selection. But going forward, I just really want to see Lo Celso make that spot his own.
And we'll start
centre halves.
Centre halves. I think I'll go with Toby and Dyer. I think he will.
The attraction, like, I think could be there to maybe Sanchez with a bit of pace, and that would worry me. Having Sanchez and Aurier in the same back four. So I think the likelihood would be the Dyer Toby. It's been fairly solid. It just lacks that little bit of pace if we get caught. So hopefully Aurier is able to recover there.
So what would be your ideal 11 then, lads? So if you're tomorrow evening, so it'd be what we're saying is Lloris obviously is pegged to be in goal. Definitely, there's going to be no changes there. Not going to see a Joe Hart against his former side or anything like that. Serge Aurier obviously would probably play. Yeah.
I think Aurier is playing by default, really, isn't he? It would be Doherty, but obviously he's not available.
Would Tanganga?
I don't know. Look, I'm gonna put one in here. Like I said, like Aurier gets a very, very, very bad rep, and it's a lot
from me. From me, to be honest. I'm not a fan. Not a fan at all.
He's never going to be that elite right back. But I think he gets hard done by sometimes. Yes, it would maybe frighten me a little bit up against the City forward line in around the box, but if he gets a run of games, he does very well. I've been at games and seen him there. like in the flesh and seeing what he does off the ball as well is quite good. But it's just his decision making sometimes obviously is a little brainless. Do you even think it back to the North London derby where he teed it up for Lacazette to smash that one like from 20 odd yards, but he gets about enough rep. But yeah, I think I don't think Tanganga is going to be starting tomorrow. Not at all. I think he'll save him for the Europa League games coming up soon. He'll give him a run.
I think we'll have to replay this moment tomorrow. Even Steve, you saying, look, Ori gets a bad rep and he'll give away a penalty in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, you replay it over a clip of him snapping at Raheem Sterling's heels in the box.
Yeah. I think that's as Chirwani just said there. I think that's pretty much the tomorrow's starting 11. Bale, I don't know. Something tells me, that the way he was there on the international duty, I think he has a chance. But like Mora is the Mourinho favourite. So,
yeah, definitely.
You get an awful lot of work out of Mora. He'll do an awful lot of covering, which we need, I suppose, for Aurier, which is why it probably would be Mora. But because I think Doherty and Bale kind of complement each other quite well. But I would like to see because everyone just wants Bale, Son, Kane. But I think the more sensible option, at least at the start tomorrow, would be maybe Lucas.
I think Jose could be hesitant to bring on Bale late, though, especially if the game is a little bit touchy. I don't know. I just think that. I don't know.
The other way.
I think so. Yeah, I think he would. You see, in the West Ham game, like he didn't do anything wrong in the West Ham game, but we did lose something when Bergie came off, like in terms of intensity. So I don't know if it's the game for Bale tomorrow. There'd be a massive expectation on him tomorrow if he started or even came on. I can see Bale getting a rest tomorrow. Actually, I can probably see Lucas start. Maybe Lucas starting and Berg going to come on in the second half. Bale scored in his last game against City in the league. I think he scored in the last game he played against City in the Champions League too, didn't he?
It's a different Bale, though. We have to remember that too. We have to remember that too. It's as much as like when we think we have Bale, Son, Kane, we don't have the Gareth Bale that we had and sold for 100 million. But it's Graham said there those days where we had 3 first-team strikers. Remember those days? 4 even. We bent as well.
4. We bent the 4. Keen. And even actually, I think the Defoe and Berba is actually an underrated partnership too. They were together for a little while, and it was really decent. So predictions tomorrow, guys. What do we think? Obviously, it's always hard doing these things when you're live on YouTube. It isn't like saying in the pub where it's kind of forgotten about after the moment. But predictions for tomorrow. Predictions for tomorrow. What do we think?
If I'm honest, I do think we're going to lose tomorrow, but I don't think that's anything to be ashamed about at all. I think City are, genuinely a really good team. They've obviously had some blips over the last 12 months, but they're looking really good again at the moment. And Torres, I think Torres looks like a really good signing. Yeah. They've got some players in form. De Bruyne has been up and down this year. Obviously, he's hugely important for them, but he's been up and down. I can see them. I can see them beating us 2-0, but again, I really don't think we need to panic or be ashamed of that. I think we've come a long way this year so far. We're doing fine. This is a really tough run, and we do need to grind out some results from it. But I have a feeling that we might lose tomorrow.
If we lose tomorrow, win next weekend, it'll be okay. I see goals in tomorrow's game. The romantic in me won't allow me to predict a Spurs loss. But I can see goals in tomorrow like 2-2. But I'm hedging my bets on a 3-2. Mourinho masterclass.
I'm going to say a 2-2 draw. Do we know if Aguero is fit tomorrow? Is it a definite? Because Aguero is always dangerous against us. I actually hate playing against him.
Yeah, and Aguero and Aurier.
Yeah, I think a draw. I think it's 2-2 draw. I'm actually quietly confident about tomorrow's game. I felt the very, very same way about the United game. Actually, I was quietly confident about it, but I didn't really say nothing to nobody because I was kind of like, my words will attract trouble. Like, and I kind of feel the same way about tomorrow. I don't know what it is, but as I said previously, this is recorded on YouTube. It's out live right now. So if people want to come back to me and say you're wrong, then that's completely fine with me. Just
So
one last question.
Fernandinho and Ake are out for Raheem Sterling and Aguero are available.
Okay. Look, we'll beat them at their best. It's fine. One last question in relation to Spurs this season. We have the January window open in the next, it's 6 weeks, 7 weeks now. Up to this point in the season, what do you think the areas that we need to improve on? I think we know the areas that we need to improve on still that we probably didn't manage in the summer. But what position do you think is vitally important?
Centre back is the big one, I think. To be honest, it's the easiest area to upgrade because there's definitely a weakness there. I think since Alderweireld came back into the team, we've looked immeasurably better. And I think Dyer looks a lot better with Alderweireld as well. He's a calming presence. He's not someone who shouts and screams, but he's a quiet organizer. Someone who just gives a sense of calm. He's also really, really good on the ball, which is an underrated ability of Alderweireld. I think if we can upgrade Dyer, I mean, don't get me wrong, Dyer's definitely done better this year than I expected. And I think he's not a terrible player at all. But I think we can easily upgrade on Dyer and not too expensive. I don't think we have to spend a huge amount of money to upgrade on him either. I think it can be done fairly cheaply. But having said that, obviously we signed Joe Rodon in the summer transfer window. So who knows whether that will be a priority to sign another centre back at this point. I guess a lot will depend on whether we can sell maybe Davinson Sanchez, who has been linked with moves away over the past couple of months.
And the rumblings are that he's doing really well in training, Joe Rodon, that he's ahead of Sanchez already, which is quite surprising in one sense, because Sanchez, I don't think Sanchez is terribly a bad option still. Like, it's just he seems his confidence at the moment seems to have had a knock, but he probably is our best defender against the likes of City because of his pace. So yeah, it's one of those hard positions to get. Who would you think, Steve, that would be a good option for us to buy? That wouldn't be massive money because of the fact that, look, I don't think we can throw it around either. But who would be a choice for you?
That's where it comes, like, who does go in there, to, who's available, and like I think the value that you'll get in the January market this year, especially, because Liverpool are going to be looking for a centre half. So because of that, I think the price of centre halves is just going to naturally inflate. Because if you are that level centre half that a Premier League club is looking for you, then clubs are just going to say, well, we're going to give us X amount. I don't see Lowdon being a bad shout for us. I think just with Sanchez, like, again, I'm hesitant to be highly critical of him, but like, we paid a lot of money for him at the time for a defender. Like that, when we bought him, that was huge money for a centre half for somebody who hadn't created a big stir in the footballing world. That we would have turned around and go, geez, we got Davinson Sanchez. Do you know, it was at the time, it was more of a case of like, oh, I've heard of him. How much? Do you know? So, like, to say, as you said, Jamie, he's not a bad option. Like, you're right, but he shouldn't be an option with that price tag at that time. You know? Like, he should be right now, like, for that price tag back then, and coming from Ajax, especially the reputation they have, you'd imagine that he would be like highly sought after now, linked with like Bayern Munich, Barcelona, and he isn't. You know, so that's where I think, I don't know whether it's a confidence thing, as you said, or if it's just a case of he hasn't lived up to the prospect that he was.
And look, we're not getting the money back for what we paid for him, 3 or 4 years ago, and that's the biggest part of it. Like, we should be doubling that. Like, Levy's model is to buy a player for that price, and if he's buying it for that price,
which is obvious what Levy was doing there, buying a young highly rated player from Ajax, looking to basically in 5 years double his money, and it's not happened.
Yeah. A comment from Keane here, who is our host for the United podcast, where he said, "Chris, your thoughts on the 6-1 win versus United?" And so you have the liberty here to crumble Keane as much as possible.
And I will be delighted to do that. They were absolutely terrible in that game. Like I don't think I've seen a team throw the towel in the way that United did in quite such a way. I mean, for a long, long time. I mean, don't get me wrong, Spurs played really well. We were so ruthless. It felt like every time we went forward, we were going to score at points in that game. And I loved that about the performance. I thought it was the mentality was absolutely spot on. But United they genuinely stopped trying. They just weren't trying at times in that game. It was hopeless. Obviously, the sending off had an impact too. And it might have been potentially would have been a different game without that. But they were a shambles, a complete and utter shambles, and Spurs made them pay in the most enjoyable way. It was just so much fun to watch from a Spurs perspective.
100%.
We've been on the other end of those so many times over the years.
Absolutely.
That for me is, and especially just like over the years. I mean, I think, like, I know myself growing up, when I was in primary school, I was I was the only Spurs fan. All that, because at the time, like, United were winning everything, so like the majority of my friends were United fans. So like I had to sit there and watch them win everything, but also like I had to go to school the day after we were 3-0 up at half time, and the 5-3. Like I still like have nightmares about that, So those kind of things over the years, like that time, that Nani goal, where we thought we had the free, like the Roy Carroll incident with Pedro Mendes, like all those things over the years, it was always United, So that 6-1 was just to kind of as if to say, okay, I think we might actually be some way square.
Yeah, I think so. We have a comment here too by Freddie Litt. I think Spurs fans are afraid to say they can win the league this year, lads. United, City, Liverpool always talk about winning. Should Spurs be seeing themselves in the same light? What do we think?
I don't think that's fair, actually. I think Spurs fans have been guilty of being over-optimistic in the past. I mean, I know I have. You sign a couple of players in the summer and you go, right, that's it, we're going to do something this year. Yeah. And it invariably doesn't turn out that way. So I'm not sure that's... I don't think that's quite fair. I would say... like, oh, someone's Siri's talking to them. I feel like we could win the league this year because so many teams seem unsettled, disrupted. There are problems, lack of fluency. But I still think it would take quite a lot for us to win the league, particularly given we're juggling, the Europa League at the same time, which is a pretty grueling competition. And Mourinho's taking that really seriously. He wants to win that competition. Yeah. I don't think you can win the Premier League and the Europa League. I just don't think that's possible, particularly with the schedule we've got with this pandemic. So I think Spurs fans are probably being realistic and thinking, top four was still a really good achievement for Spurs. If we can do better than that, then great. But let's take it one step at a time and just enjoy the ride.
I love the mentality of under the radar too, though. I love that side of it. Like, it's almost like the siege approach where you're kind of like it's building. We do not want to be talked about right now. We don't want people to be saying, "Oh, Spurs are title or in the title run," and we want to get past Christmas. If it comes to the last 10 games and we're in a good position, that's when Mourinho's appointment is what we got him for. Until that point, I'm really happy going with the game by game mentality that Mourinho wants to instill into, and that's a really big thing for us at the moment.
Absolutely, and also we've had a relatively favourable run of fixtures to start. I mean, very favourable run of fixtures to start off with. We've played 3 of the bottom 5 teams in our last 3 matches, right? Yeah, and so things have been really good for us, which has been great because it means we've been able to bed in our new players and manage the Europa League at the same time. But now's the real test. The next 7 games are absolutely insane for Spurs. If you look at our fixtures, we're playing, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Wolves, Leicester, and Palace away. It's nuts. And And I think there will be some defeats amongst that, and some fans will start to panic. But I think we just need to remain realistic and appreciate where we've come from and what we are as a team. We're still in transition. We've signed a lot of players in the summer. They're still bedding in, and it is reasonable to expect some defeats to come. And that doesn't mean the season's over by any stretch, because we can easily go again in January and put another run together. But let's be realistic about it.
I think we've heard too in Jose's language today about the prospect of losing. I think his thing about losing is the fact that it is inevitable that it will happen, but it's the winner's mentality after the loss is something that he's building towards. I think it's been relevant. It's been very relevant in his pressers for majority of the season so far. He spoke about it. We're not going to win every game. We're going to lose some games, but I think that's a brilliant attitude to have, because of the fact that isn't defeatist. That's actually a winner's mentality, because you have to react so well after that loss.
Yeah, and I think like for example, the loss against Antwerp, like you could visibly see he did not take that well, and because he doesn't mind losing, it's the nature of the loss. Like if you've gone out there and just not implemented his plan, you've not come off the pitch like completely empty, then you can't say that you did everything to try and prevent the loss. And I think that's a lot of the ownership that he places on the players. Pochettino was the guy, like he was the arm around your guy. Hey, look, listen, it's not the end of the world. We'll get him next time, you know. Whereas like Mourinho, as he said, like he didn't even talk to the players after the game. He just got on the bus, you know, on his now world famous Instagram account. But I like the point you made, Jamie, about coming into the last 10 games of the season, and I think that's something that Pochettino suffered from a lot, was getting us to the end of the season. We seemed to drop off like that. The final day of the season, all we needed was the draw. We finished above Arsenal, and I remember that day I was playing soccer myself, and next thing came off the pitch after the game anyway, and I asked someone to score, and they said 5-1. I was like, oh, lovely. He said, no, to Newcastle. I was like, they're relegated. What? You know. So I think there won't be a case this season of us taking our foot off the gas. You can't really compare it, obviously, to the Project Restart, because that was the end of the season, yes, but it was practically a new season again. So, but I think if we can stay there or thereabouts, and we get to like around March, and we're still in a race of sorts, I think then you'll hear me saying we might be able to do it. Until then, I'm saying top 4.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same thing. We had a comment here from Black Pudding MacGyver a moment ago as well. Tottenham over the years have not been a good away team, but with no crowds with Corona, do you see this being to their benefit to Spurs? What do we think of that?
Work both ways. Like I think, like having been in the stadium, like when it's absolutely in full flight, full voice, it's absolutely immense, especially in that south stand. So like, there's a definite element there that I can see how if you're on the pitch that would carry you. But I've also been there as well when like it's been very touchy among Spurs fans there, and you could hear a pin drop in a 62,000 seater stadium, and you can feel the tension in the stadium, and that has to translate onto the pitch. So I think it's working both ways, I suppose, when we go to places where the home fans are like famously loud and difficult to play with them there. I think it's working to our advantage.
I think there are some other elements to home advantage as well. Just the familiarity, both of the stadium itself, and Thierry Henry, I think, used to talk about parts of the stadium that he'd look up and see things, and he'd be able to sort of place himself on the pitch from what he was seeing in his peripheral vision. And I think that is one element of it, but it's also the routine, the familiarity of routine. So the journey to the stadium, you're waking up at a certain time of day and getting to the stadium in the same way, and you're traveling in the same way. There's there's something to that allows players to stay in their zone and a bit more focused. So I think the fans do clearly have I mean, they definitely have an impact, and frankly, football is nothing without its fans. But I don't think it's just fans. I think there's other elements to home advantage that have an effect as well.
Wasn't it Alderweireld said that at White Hart Lane, that by the end of it he was able to, like by a certain sponsor boarding in his peripheral vision, he was able to pick out a pass. He knew exactly where to go. I suppose like it's things like that, I guess, that you'd forget that can affect the player, like and when it comes to the fact that that's where you're playing, I suppose week in, week out, you'll get familiarity too. You'll know in peripheral vision, you're able to see a certain part of the stand and know where you are on the pitch, so. But,
yeah, absolutely. Just to finish up there now, Chris, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Like, really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back on again at some stage. Really enjoyable chat with you. Celebrate the treble, absolutely. But no, thanks for coming on. I know you're a very busy man, so a pleasure talking to you tonight. Some really good opinions, some really good views from you. And I follow you on Twitter. I've read many threads from you, and look, it's really interesting stuff. So thanks again for coming on, Chris.
Thanks, guys. It's been really nice to chat to you both and get to know you. And I'd be delighted to come back on if your viewers are happy enough with that. Absolutely. And also to Steve, come on tonight. Pleasure again as always, bud. We'll be texting from minute 1 to minute 90 again, like every weekend Spurs play. So I'm looking forward to that, and also to all the comments tonight. Look, we had a lot of comments tonight, guys, which is really important to our overall chat too, because we want to have different views, different comments, and different questions from our viewers. So it's really important. We have another live show at 8:15 tonight, which is the London Lowdown, with a couple of different fans and that from different clubs. So we have a Chelsea fan, an Arsenal fan, the return of Jack Clemson and Chrissy Guerin to chat about the upcoming weekend games. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. But thanks again, guys. Really good chat. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.